Hello, Smite fans, and welcome back to the Smite Pro League powered by Alienware. But a couple of changes coming in. First off, I want to go ahead and let you guys know back at home that if you are watching the Smite Pro League, it is all about comfort and watching it in the most luxurious comfort imaginable. And of course, what better way than finding yourself in the most luxurious seat possible by heading on over to needforseat.com and plugging code SMITEMAX for a nice little discount on one of your very own Maxnomic chairs. It's not just Alienware as a title sponsor of the league. Want to say a big shout out to Maxnomic for all the support that they give to the players quite literally whenever they're actually able to play their sets in studios and back at home. So thank you so much to Maxnomic for that. And for the rest of you guys, we just saw a pretty impressive set for the Leviathans up against the Valhalla Valkyries, but now it's all about the Tartarus Titans taking over on the Jade Dragons. I'll be hosting alongside Mifflin, joining me for this set today. And Mifflin, what are your initial thoughts?
I was still kind of thinking about the Miami Heats, but if you're asking about the set in particular,
Mifflin, I don't want to solo this segment, but I will if I absolutely have to.
Want to bet?
For starters, as we already mentioned, Atlantis Leviathans up against the Valhalla Valkyries. And now we're going to be embarking into the Jade Dragons versus the Tartarus Titans to close out our Friday afternoon. After that, you guys could see tomorrow's matches. Jade Dragons yet again up against the Solar Scarabs, Olympus Bolts, all that good stuff. But that's in the future. For right now, it's about whether or not the Jade Dragons can see about looking for a third-place tie up against the Atlantis Leviathans if they're able to close out against the Tartarus Titans here today, and vice versa for the Titans. So a decent bit on the line here for these two teams, Mifflin, as they're looking to try and even up the scoreboards for the standings up against those Leviathans.
And now you want me to talk, but not about the Miami Heats. All right, yeah, so I guess we talk about the players, right? And like which ones are really good, Taco?
Why are you here?
To analyze the game.
Why are you here, man?
I'm analyzing the game.
Why do you have to ruin like one of the best sports ever?
Esports? Wait, why you got me? Taco's doing like a super sick face. All right, so yeah, look, see? That's such good content. Oh my god. So it wasn't esports. You're actually talking about basketball? Yeah. All right, so here's the thing about how Paul's really good at Smite. He is. He's so good at Smite, Taco. He plays mid lane. He's won some world championships. And also, diverse God pool.
All right, I'm back. I will agree, Paul, certainly a force to be reckoned with here in the mid lane.
Yep.
I think that one of the most impressive aspects of this Tartarus Titans roster is their capability of bouncing back no matter how difficult a game individually can look. And I think one of the big standout points for Paul here is that he's certainly going to have his work cut out for him up against the likes of Hurrywin, but I feel as though Paul's flexibility as a mid laner is one of the primary reasons why he's able to stand out in that role.
Yeah, sometimes he is playing a little bit further back, maybe a slower style a la Shinto. Sometimes he's going Season 7 Captain Twig, jumping inside of your tower at like level 5. It's just that versatility that you've already alluded to that makes it so hard to lock down exactly what Paul is going to do. And then you talk about his diverse god pool behind that. Sometimes you're like, I don't want to deal with Paul's Raijin. He's going to throw like barrels at me and swing bananas, and you don't want to play against that. So you ban the Raijin. Well, okay, now he's playing Morgan or Hebo or even, God forbid, his Hell. It's just so hard to deal with them.
Yeah, and I think Paul even has a pretty firm understanding of the fact, I mean, being one of the mid laners that has a relatively new jungler, even with Scary not being new to the league, I'm sure that it sent Paul for a little bit of a spin here, but all of that experience, I'm certain, has definitely helped him out with helping to gauge Scary as far as how he wants him to kind of transition throughout this. And we've even got Paul standing by for the pregame interview here today. Paul?
What's up?
Are we going to see any sort of guest appearances from your teammates on this interview today?
I don't know if they want to. Do you want to make a guest appearance, Ronnie? What? Do you want to make a guest appearance? Sure. Yeah, say hi.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much, Ronnie. Thank you.
He said we're gonna win today.
Oh, you guys are gonna win today. I'm liking the confidence. Any particular reason why you're standing behind that one?
Why are we gonna win today, Ronnie?
Just interview.
Paul,
Just because we're
this
good.
Is your interview, Paul.
We're good at the game.
Well,
I didn't say we were gonna win today. I said there's like a 50% chance we'll win today, and so the reason we'll win, if it's that 50% chance roll, is if we're good.
That's a very strong reason. But if you have 50% confidence and Scary has another 50% confidence, that equals a 100% win rate, right?
True.
Can't argue math here.
I didn't think about it that way, but true.
Appreciate you, Paul, for real though. Thank you guys.
Thanks.
And hey, short, simple, sweet. You already know the drill when it comes to these pregame interview segments. So thank you so much, Paul, for joining us, and looking forward to seeing what you guys have for us up against the Jade Dragons today. Hey, it's in good spirits over at the Titans household, and I think for good reason, Mifflin, because they have definitely been on the up and up. A couple of, moments here and there, but I think for the most part, this Tartarus Titans roster is really starting to find their own pace.
Yeah, you can see it. When the boys are feeling good like that, when they're able to joke around, have some fun, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm sure everyone in chat will do that. They love to correct me when I'm wrong because it happens so often. That might be the first time in a pregame interview the Tartarus Titans have even alluded to the fact that they think they're going to win. Generally, it's them coming on like, oh, yeah, we're going to get bodied. But instead, Paul looking a little bit happy.
And I think that confidence is always going to be a key factor, especially when you're up against the likes of the Jade Dragons. We're heavily regarded as one of the SMITE Pro League's powerhouse teams, and Paul certainly got some formidable competition. We already alluded to it lightly, Mifflin, but Hurrywin sitting in that mid lane position, he has certainly been making a pretty heavy impact for this Dragons roster as of late, and just looked like an absolute menace in the mid lane role.
Yeah, he's added Morgan Le Fay into the artillery for him, and, well, it's been a guy that he's been allowed to play a fair bit and looks incredibly potent on it. But that's not the only thing he's added to his arsenal, if you would. It's Yanis has kind of made a little bit of a resurgence here for Hurrywin. He's been allowed to play it a couple more times than he used to, and has been looking incredibly potent on that as well. I think that, if anything, we're looking at a match, or a set rather, where both of these mid laners are going to be looking to play very passive in lane. I wouldn't be overly surprised if we see some benevolence pickups, maybe a little bit more so from Hurrywin than Paul, who likes to play very aggressive.
Everybody loves a little bit of gold spooling, Miffin, that's for sure. And benevolence, certainly the item to bring it. That you are right in that regard. But I think breaking it down, as far as the rosters are concerned, do you feel as though either of these teams should really be gauging a lot of their focus towards that mid lane area, or do you think that the targets should primarily just be about like trying to look for the strengths in the drafting phase in general?
That question is so nuts. Are they looking to pressure the mid lane or do P's and P's?
Well, it's because, like, do you want to fight individually, or are you trying to just deal with, like, compositions as a whole? Because team fights versus the individual laning perspective, I think it's two different fields of discussion.
They are two different fields of discussion, yes. Like apples and oranges. I think both of these squads are going to try and do P's and B's incredibly well, get drafts that work out for them. But if anything, I'm thinking it's a little bit more so about jungle presence from both teams. Scary D, as you already highlighted earlier on, is newer to this role and was struggling, has seemed to find his footing a little bit more so as the weeks have started to roll their way through. And Sam for Soccer is, well, one of the best to have ever done it inside of the jungle. So, if anything, I'm expecting the Tartarus Titans to try and limit some of what Sam for Soccer is doing in P's and B's, and then it's all about the play on field.
Well, Sam has certainly been the target for a lot of teams that the Jade Dragons have been playing against lately, and then for picks and bans game number one, it's actually going to be the Tartarus Titans looking to lock in that first pick position, and it's relatively open-ended right now, Mifflin, just because we have been seeing a lot of priority shift more towards some of the Artemis. Odin has been another top ban as of late. Would you imagine that some of those bans kind of resurface here?
I wouldn't be overly surprised. As you've already highlighted, they're both incredibly strong picks, but there's a lot of things that need to be addressed here in Season 8. Tiamat's incredibly strong. Yamoja can dominate matches. There's a lot of guys that generally have to be looked at first. When you want to talk about Tartarus Titans, and when we were talking about Scary D earlier, one of his favorite picks inside of the jungle has been Loki. Generally has not been allowed to play that because of the bans. So I'm excited to see how they roll out, but I'm expecting largely standard.
I'm almost curious to see whether or not the Jade Dragons even opt to look for bans like the Tiamat or the Morgan Le Fay, maybe having a possibility of them just putting a lot of trust into Hurrywin because you want to keep the drafting phase relatively open when you're in this second pick position. You don't want to give too much leverage to the Titans. So if you leave open at least one or two power picks that you can have that immediate response with based off whatever the Titans prioritize, could be a nice position for the Jade Dragons to be in.
Yeah, but Jade Dragons seem to think that even if they are fishing for that Morgan Le Fay pick, Tiamat might be just a little bit stronger than Morgan Le Fay, enough so that they're not willing to leave both open and instead address that immediately inside the bans, followed up quickly by the Emoja, Titans banning the Odin on the other side like you had highlighted. So generally, very standard as we've seen so far.
What are your initial thoughts though on seeing the Tartarus Titans actually opt for a Terra ban before anything else?
I think Terra is just incredibly strong right now, and Genetics, maybe one of the progenitors of this god in the SPL, has shown the value of her inside of the team fight, as well as just great jungle presence. She can lock down entire jungle lanes here in Season 8 and just make it impossible to rotate throughout the fight. So I'm expecting the majority of teams to start looking a little bit more so towards this Terra.
Well, mid lane matchups aside, I think that the side lanes are mostly what I want to stay a little bit more locked in here between these two teams, because I would expect that for the Tartarus Titans, if they are looking to prioritize a pick for Aurora early on, I think that Aurora has kind of been a little bit of a punching bag as of late in the league. Hasn't really had many pick options, I think, that are really meant for him to be able to individually excel in, as much as it is about like the team fight potential. So if the Titans are able to actually find a nice aggressive pick here for Aurora, where do you think that should try to hover around, Mifflin?
I mean, I've always been a fan of Aurora's Bacchus. I love seeing him play gods like the Hercules as well, but as you've highlighted, he has shifted his attention more so towards, instead of generating the pressure himself, facilitating his team. So I think it makes sense that they're going to go ahead and just allow Aurora's pick to fall a little bit deeper down inside of the draft and instead go for something that is just about uncounterable. I wouldn't say not overly strong in the sense that he can do whatever he wants, but Osiris doesn't necessarily have too many counter matchups. It's a very safe pick overall. It's kind of like you're hovering your draft. You don't want to show exactly what you're looking for. Let's take Osiris, and you afford you a little bit of a flex potential as well inside of the jungle and solo. But when you take a pick like this in the first slot, a pick that isn't necessarily the top of the power rankings, you leave a lot of that stuff open to the other team. And, well, Jade Dragons with their top two come away with some pretty strong picks.
Seems as though the Jade Dragons just trying to solidify that front line early on, or at least a couple of front line assets, because Gilgamesh, definitely a flex pick option here, but the Loki is what I was waiting to see, the direction for the Tartarus Titans here, and I think that that's where the Osiris first pick becomes such a big talking point here for the Tartarus Titans, because it does allow for Scary, I think, to get a better idea of whether or not he would feel comfortable taking a pick like Loki. And if you are a Loki here, Mifflin, and you see Gilgamesh and Fafnir on the enemy team, does that really make you have any sort of concerns, or do you feel like that pick is still a really strong selection choice here?
I think Loki, in of himself, is just such a strong pick. His early game presence, his late game scaling is all there. He's got great early game ganks as well. It's not even necessarily that he's concerned with the Fafnir or the Gilgamesh, or he thinks it's necessarily a great matchup into them. I think Scary was just looking for Loki. I mean, was this his 9th game on it so far here in Season 8? So I like this pick a lot. I think it fits into this draft, and even into Gilgamesh, has a decent matchup. The Windows Shamash, not very good at locking down the Loki. He can use that slow immunity inside of the stealth to try to work his way out of there. Even into gods like Soul, who take a very long time to get their safety online. The Disapparate takes a long time to channel. Well, Loki can try and put the damage onto you before that happens, close gap with Assassinate. I think it's just a smart pick.
Don't think it's just the Loki either that's going to have a chance to get some burst potential going on that Soul before the Disapparate rings out. But I do feel whenever there's a Soul and a Fafnir, there's definitely a little bit of objective favoritism towards the Jade Dragons for what it's worth. And do you think that Osiris, Loki, Izanami, I mean, what would you like to see for complementing the Titans draft? What do you think is really going to round this out?
They need some consistent AoE CC, something that can initiate these team fights every single time. I mean, Athena Confound comes to mind, maybe something like a Cataclysm from Geb, just a deterring tool of some sort, because right now the Titans have their damage output and they've got good backline disruption from the Osiris himself, but Osiris takes a very long time to get that stun through from Tether. I mean, Lord of the Afterlife is a decent initiation tool, but it's not the longest route on the planet either. So instead, I want to see that front line get shored up a little bit. Whereas the Jade Dragons, I mean, their front line's there. Gilgamesh is going to create that backline disruption and just lunacy with the Winds of Shamash. Fafnir has good initiation with the hammer and the dragon form stuns as well. And, well, you've already highlighted their neutral objective clear on the side of the dragons is going to be pretty quick.
Almost curious to see whether or not Panda Cat's going to look to try and channel that signature Panzaburu as well. It's been a hot minute, I think, since we've seen him get to actually pilot the little rocket raccoon in that dual lane. But with the bow build being such a heavy priority factor for so many hunters currently in the league, would have to expect that he would also have some decent boxing capabilities up against the likes of the Izanami. And also important to note, Fenrir is actually still up for grabs just in case the Jade Dragons aren't completely sold on having this Gilgamesh as their jungle of choice.
I'm sorry, Taco. I don't want to talk to you about anything about what you just said because Amuzin Cobb just got locked in. You fans at home might have heard Gormizer drop his like home development like voice, but that's exactly what happens. This is not a pick we've seen in a long time, and I think it's something that is very susceptible actually to this Titans draft. Osiris can just stick to Amuzin Cobb. Loki can just stick to Amuzin Cobb. Even Izanami is going to have a decent time chasing him out. It's all about that late game scaling and team fight presence. Set up some hives in the jungle around Fire Giant. All of a sudden, Honey is a huge determining factor inside of these fights. Oh, I don't want to talk about Amuzin Cobb anymore. Paul locked in hell. These guys are going spicy.
They are definitely going all out with both of these team compositions, but important to note, Almuz and Cobb, that Honey, the bees are going to be the perfect trigger factor, I think, for revealing Loki and Izanami in those stealth opportunities in case. So flank watch, I think, definitely viable. Plus, you have to remember, hives do service as a small ward, so a little bit of an advantage here in terms of survivability, but that survivability only goes so far, given the fact that Loki, Osiris, Kuzumbo, all gods that I think are excellent at sticking to a much less immobile hunter like this AMC. But Mifflin, ultimately, this is just shaping up to be a kill or be killed mentality between these two teams.
It's going to be a barn burner. Whichever team pulls a lead is likely going to be able to keep their foot to the metal for the entire time. I'm expecting the Titans to try and set the pace through this Loki jungle, likely through the long lane. You don't want to allow AMC to farm up whatsoever. And, well, now with the boots change, AMC is going to have a little bit more movement speed than his counterparts in the early game just thanks to hives, but is going to have to wait until level 7 to get that full 18%, which means that no jump, no leap, no dash, well, no chance. This AMC is going to have a very hard time surviving the early.
But you did mention that as far as the Titans composition was concerned, before the Hell and Kuzumbo were locked in, you wanted to see that consistent AoE sort of crowd control. Do you think that they've accomplished that with Hell and Kuzumbo?
It feels a little bit more so like the Titans shifted the identity of their draft away from just standard team fight and a little bit more so towards pure dive potential. The Hell is going to give the entire team additional movement speed to close gap. And who are they closing gap onto? Well, if they're lucky, Soul, but she's very survivable with the sap rate. So I think the target's likely going to be the AMC in the late game team fight. And well, this guy has a decent front line built around him with the Fafnir, the Gilgamesh, and the Cucullin, but the Titans have come up with a very good spearhead composition. Their CC initiation still a little bit weak, but their disruption factor, the Watery Grave, should help out a little bit just to create enough space for the Titans to work their way in.
So what would you say is the primary win condition here for the Jade Dragons then?
Jade Dragons is protect the AMC. If they can keep him alive, and they should be able to with the draft that they have, they don't need to worry so much about Hurry Wind on this Soul. I think they could do a pretty good job of it, or just control the early game, get to these neutral objectives, utilize this double hunter composition with the Fafnir, and just blast Gold Furies.
Well, we'll get a chance to see exactly how it pans out. Couple of Spice Pigs, both directions. Should be a fun game one. And we've got Gormizer and Dolson standing by for the cast.
That's right, Taco. It's Dolson, Gore, and Doug bringing you game number one between two teams caught in that consistency vortex. The Tartarus Titans and the Jade Dragons will do battle to get themselves back into the win column. And Gormizer, I heard, I don't know if the viewers got to hear your Scooby-Doo howl of excitement as Panda Cat will lock in the AMC going up against Izanami. A lane I'm confident in saying that we have not seen in a long, long time.
Yeah, you'd be right, mainly because we haven't seen Amuz and Cobb at all this year. This is his first game, and
I love being with you when a new god gets locked in. It's a treat.
I just didn't expect it. That's that noise was bred out of genuine surprise of all hunters to lock in there. Panda Cat goes for the Amuz and Cobb. Not only an Amuz and Cobb day, but a benevolence Amu's and Cobb. I think Mifflin said it earlier where, hey, more gold spooling is better, but I'm really interested to watch this lane now. I mean, Amu's and Cobb, look, late game, he hits like a truck. I mean, it is, with a Fafnir and a Soul, this team can run over the Titans if they get there fine and comfortably. But there are a lot of the issues the desk had highlighted in getting there. The, hey, I can't jump. Hey, I can't dash. Hey, I'm really slow, as it turns out. Like, I've got honey. That's all I can do to stop you.
And Gore, you mentioned benevolence on Panda Cat. We'll have to wait and see, but it's something that we have seen out of the mid lane when the starts look like they do here. PBM forced to leap on away there, but Hurrywin going with the tier 2 item, Paul going with the tier 2 item as well. Could be a Warlock staff there for this hell. But this is something we saw in our set yesterday. It was Valkyries versus the Bolts, and we saw Zero's do it a couple of times and builds Benevolence after getting a tier 2 item early on. So a little bit late because Benevolence is going to receive some changes. But apparently everyone wants to do it. Sanford Soccer, though, chased down in the mid lane. And Paul, hey, no starter item, no problem. First blood to the Titans.
Look, Hell's issues early on, wow, Herwin gets a lot of damage turned out. Hell's issues early on are not necessarily in the damage department. She does a lot of damage throughout pretty much most of the game. It's always that mana. I mean, you can see Paul has virtually none left as of right now. Scary was pretty low as well, but backed and healed up. But that's what these items are going to be for. I mean, it's just going to be more power, more mana, more survivability for Paul. That healing, while right now maybe isn't as massive as it could be late game, is going to come in handy. I think as long as he can survive up the damage that Herwin's going to be dishing out and survive this I don't have any mana phase of Hell, it's going to translate really well into this late game and really elevate the Titans team fight.
I think the duo lane, continues not only because of the picks that we see, but I think it's going to be an important pivot point in this matchup. Izanami, not a pick, again, that we see all that often, but has plenty of wave clear, right? I mean, you get to sit there, you clear out that wave somewhat quickly. Panda Cat can get to that point, but do you expect the Titans to be able to find pressure, push the Jade Dragons back? Because I feel like we've seen the wave now that reset back towards the middle of the lane. Had seen up to this point Cyclone Spin and Aurora feeling comfortable, could open up the door to some jungle pressure on the left side of the map.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen that much pressure on it already. Aurora, like Kuzenbo, it feels like a match made in heaven for him to be able to come and grab this specific pick in Amu's and Cobb. That's where the Fafnir comes in, right? It's slowing him down just enough, but there's that wave clear you had just highlighted. It doesn't matter. Like, there's a certain point a few levels from now where Panda Cat's going to be able to essentially one-tap the wave. Close enough if he throws out the honey as well as the bees themselves. But Cyclone Spin's kind of already there. I mean, he's not one-tapping it, but because of the way the autos work as well as just his clear in general, he's going to be able to guide this lane, and he's already 5.
Cyclone Spin dashes in here. Panda Cat, level 4 still, at a disadvantage there in that fight, so he'll back away. Both mid laners have gone back. Warlock staff completed for Paul, and Charon's coin picked up here for Hurrywin. So no starter item picked up for either of those two mid laners yet. Probably makes more sense, Score, though. Let's get those stacking items completed and see if we can't get some stacks built up.
I really like the pressure so far. Like, the Titans are playing this pretty much beautifully. I think this is a draft that really will handle the Dragons late game, at least if they continue to play it right. And it's all in mid.
Oh no, Sanford Soccer again in the mid lane. This time, though, he returns a kill into the back pocket of Hurrywin. But fine, okay, what are you doing over here? 4 minutes in, the Salmon Leap under the tower, the Rage Bar building up, but it won't be needed. A double kill to the Soul, 4 minutes in.
Fine, okay, barely gets out of that tower in time, too. One more hit, another ability, just anything like that from Paul could have ended his life and ended up making that a little more in favor of him. But yeah,
he hasn't missed much. So his blue buff's down. He can go get that.
He's going to be able to pick that up. Didn't really miss much in terms of experience and gets a double kill. Look, if your jungler's 0-2 and 2, Gilgamesh can carry, but Sam can also facilitate from this pick. It's not the end of the world for him, and they just got a double kill on the Hurry.
So that the wave is pushing underneath Final Case Tower, so there will be some minion loss. Looking like at least a wave, depending on how long it takes for this blue buff to get completed. But ultimately feels worth it to get some pressure over there for Hurrywin, because this wave this lane in the mid had been going so well for Paul. But now Sam for Soccer not deterred. He'll make his way to the left-hand side of the map. Cyclone Spin, Max on away, drops the ultimate, silences out Sam for Soccer and Aurora. Actually gets Sam dangerously low here. But Panda Cat, without his ultimate on the back end of the fight, will allow Aurora and Cyclone Spin to stay alive just a little bit longer. Paul was there for insurance. But it's just a look by the Jade Dragons, no kills.
And it opens up a fun conversation. First off, Izanami's ult, nice, decent-sized silence that comes through. Maybe not as big as, your Krakens, your I'm a Monsters, but a good-sized silence in the middle of a team fight, not just now in the middle of a gank, but later. could be crucial for them. It's really good when it comes down to clear conversations as well, because it's a good chunk of burst damage that's just going to appear wherever you target that. But Panda Cat's happens to have a 16-second cooldown if you pick it up. You shoot somebody, it's a decent-sized burst damage, follow it up with any follow-up damage, and then when it drops out, if you're able to pick it up, you might as well just have it back. It's a regular ability cooldown at that point. And so I really like what Stinger is going to be able to bring here if he's able to continue picking it up, because that really does set up a precedent for the team fight. That being said, it's never worth going out of position for it. You have so much damage outside of that as Amuzen Cobb. So Cyclone Spin has to hit more crucial ultimates this game, whereas Panda Cat can just kind of throw his out, whether it's for a kill or not, and still feel pretty happy about it.
Yeah, I mean, I love this, the opportunity to see these unique matchups. And we've talked a lot about both of them. Talked a little bit about Final K as well. His rotation into the mid lane a moment ago, setting up a couple kills for Hurrywind. Some pressure maybe from Scary D. This Loki, I think, an interesting conversation point as well here, Gore. 0-1-2 so far. Gore takes some damage, but he will likely be safe here. Hey, Panda Cat just throwing this ultimate out willy-nilly and won't pick this one up, but I guess with the cooldown on that, not super worried about it. But Scary D on this Loki, I think an interesting conversation point as well, because the desk talked a little bit about the stealth potential of this Tartarus Titans team and how maybe the AMC could be a bit of a counter to that.
And you gotta give shout-outs to former coach, not there for him now, Cherio. Well, actually, I believe this is going to be a very niche shout-out, but I know Hazer restreams these, and I think Cherio is hosting on Hazer's stream right now. So, hey, Cherio! Hope you're enjoying watching your team go forward, but right now it's going to be this Loki up to par, maybe. No, he's not even going to fight here. That's kind of the thing I'm wondering about Scary D. This has actually been one of his better, or at least stronger picks in the jungle, and I think there's a lot of ample opportunity. It's going to be a little more difficult to lock down someone consistently like Hurrywind, as well as Final K. Honestly, his main target should be Panda Cat as the game transitions into late. It's going to be the easiest one to lock down, but that's where the dragons and their peel comes into the conversation.
Yep. Well, I've loved kind of the tug of war that's been happening here in Duo as well. Only with some jungle pressure have we seen things sway one way or another. Of course, the benevolence for Panda Cat could be a difference maker in reality. Leather Cowl for Cyclone Spin, we know the value that that brings, especially into this type of build. Add some of that extra lifesteal. Panda Cat with the benevolence, of course, then golden XP. Maybe a little bit more apparent for this pick. Mid laner score did end up going back and getting benevolence for themselves, so it was, let's finish off the stacking items, and Hurrywind on time, remember, finished the Charon's coin and then got the double kill, so get some stacks on that item. And then on over to the benevolence. The Dragons have to win this one, right? They simply have more benevolences than the Tartarus Titans do on a 3-2 advantage. It's a good item. It's almost a game of chicken, right? I mean, you don't want to be the one in your lane without it if your opponent picks it up. So Paul and Hurrywind at least on level footing in that regard.
You never know. Late game, Benji doesn't have a starter item right now. Might pick it up, go for
what?
I guess like an animosity could actually maybe translate pretty well for an Osiris. So there could be some interesting plays there to be had for the Titans to balance it out. But that's the other thing I'm wondering. It might turn into an animosity here for Panda Cat as well. I mean, you're looking at somebody that already hits really hard in Amuzen Cobb. Now here's something. Admittedly, you don't have a lot of health, but 4% of anything is still decent damage. So I'm just going to watch that one to see how it ends up turning out. But I'm really excited to see how it transitions, because outside of the couple of fights in mid, with one of them being a huge rotation from Final K, not a lot has occurred.
I was thinking Final K might need to be careful here, because Scary D on cooldown, blue buff, remember, attempted to be invaded last time, unsuccessful. Final K was able to confirm his own blue buff. This time Aurora is here, so this is a 3 versus 2 in favor of the Tartarus Titans. Sanford Soccer pushed back against the wall. Scary D in with the ultimate to find big damage, and it's Sanford Soccer wiped off the face of the map with ease. Paul's going to rotate in here as well in case there's an ensuing fight. There won't be, and the Tartarus Titans have found more pressure on the right, as well as a pick onto Sam.
And you even get a hint of a rotation from Paul, like, hey, am I needed? No, we're fine. And this hell is going to be even more problematic, because so far she hasn't been involved in a lot of the fights. It's just getting better for Paul. Finishes off that Charon's coin, so at least he's going to have a big damage spike as well. The health from the Warlock staff, it just feels good.
Roar gets stunned through by PBM. PBM actually commits the ultimate there to transform. Could have been a kill over the horizon. I respect the effort there. Get Hurrywind stacking up just a little bit further. You think anti-heal might be a concern here for the Jade Dragons? You got Brawler's Beat Stick early for Sanford Soccer. Hurrywind's picked up the Divine Ruin. It's always interesting watching the pivots, because I think back to Season 7, the prevalence of the healer meta, it was a foregone conclusion that you were seeing a Brawler's Beat Stick, you were seeing a Divine Ruin at some point in the game. Right back to it, though. I mean, hell, scary enough threat. You got to pick up some anti-heal.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a Contagion, maybe a Pestilence. Now, Contagion just feels a little bit better here to get the physical process, especially against a Loki, Osiris, Izanami. But then you also have Cursed Ankh at some point. I wouldn't even mind it if they went for 2 Cursed Ankhs, if PBM and FineOK pick one up for that late game, but realistically, you could have one and probably be fine with it. It's a good, 8-second window that you have to work with there, so it could really make things shift in favor of the Dragons for the 5-on-5. But it comes down to a very similar style. Scary, except, you're all protecting Panda Cat on the Dragons. On the other side, you're all protecting Paul to an extent. Scary D's protecting Paul in I'm going to dive and kill a guy real hard. Benji and Aurora are going to be peeling or setting up kills for Cyclone, and Paul is going to play healer, but again, Hell does a lot of damage. This kind of build, even though it's only 2 items in, is still going to facilitate a lot of damage to be just output by Paul.
Man, we've seen these junglers on the right side of the map pretty consistently throughout the onset of this game. Blue buff, respawning. Scary D seeing if maybe he wants to go for another invade here. Sanford Soccer's been the brunt of everything for the Tartarus Titans. All 3 kills onto Sanford Soccer, so you'll need to see a little bit more out of this Gilgamesh to start to feel comfortable. But then you say, well, Dave, there's a 1,000 gold lead for the Jade Dragons, and Sanford Soccer's 0-3. What's going on there? This has been quiet, Gore. A 1,000 gold lead for Panda Cat over Cyclone Spin. Nothing has happened in the duo lane at all. And Panda Cat, maybe with some help of the Benevolence, has pulled about a 1K gold lead, and that's the real difference maker up top.
I mean, that's exactly what you want to buy it for, right? Is that exact reason. Hey, I'm going to get a little more experience. He was actually down a level earlier, now 12 to 12, so he's been able to catch up in that regard. But like you said, if the 1,000 gold are flying right into your pocket, that's got to feel good. He's already started at least a tier 1 ahead. But I imagine this translates really good into, well, the ward coverage on the left side of the maps, and with Gold Fury spawned up, they have a little bit of vision on it, except those are all blue wards, so it's the Titans instead.
They're doing it quick, Gore. It is a quick Gold Fury for the Tartarus Titans, nearly for the Jade Dragons. If Sanford Soccer was able to steal it away, but unsuccessful. If there was a fight on the back end of that actually could have been good timing for the Jade Dragons. Panda Cat has a full item advantage, and it's a Silver Branch bow right now over Cyclone Spin. That's a pretty good call. I think Cyclone sees Panda Cat go back, and the rest of the Titans quickly collapse on the Gold Fury. And so that brings things right back towards even. And we effectively are returned to a state of even here 13 minutes in.
And it creates an interesting dynamic where it showcases that the burn for the Titans is something to be a little worried about. Cyclone Spin also doesn't use the ult for any sort of secure. They don't necessarily drop anything worried about the steal from the Dragons. And now it's the same kind of conversation, I think, when you look over towards the Dragons. If Herwin, Panda Cat, and Mike are in the same spot for an objective, that objective's going to die very, very fast. But who's going to secure it? I mean, I guess Sam is maybe one of the best ones. They do have the Supernova from Herwin to try and confirm some things, but it's not as maybe easily confirmed as something like what Cyclone Spin could do.
Well, there's been a lot of pressure against Paul in the mid lane. Paul with the 1 level advantage, Herwin level down. But maybe no surprise there. Once Soul gets to a point where you can push that wave pretty quickly and damage, some auto attacks start to make its way onto the tower. Soul is able to farm that up pretty quickly. Scary D will stealth here in the mid lane, but eats a chunk of damage for his troubles. And so he'll back off and back away. All things considered, Gore, I mentioned Sanford Soccer's had a slower start to this game, 0-3-2, but done a good job farming, only 1 level down to Scary D, who's had the 0-1-3 start, arguably more attractive in the KDA department, affecting all 3 of his team's kills.
It's definitely kind of been felt overall. I mean, outside of closely getting a steal there, or almost getting a steal there for Sam, and the double kill early on, he hasn't really done a whole ton here. And this doesn't necessarily feel like a comp that's trying to get things done early on. I mean, he made a rotation into mid. Again, that resulted in a nice double kill. He's made a rotation over to the duo lane, forced out a silence from Cyclone Spin, but he's been very quiet this game. I mean, you'd highlighted he's 0-0-2, or 0-3-2. And so maybe we start to see this pick up as time goes on, but that's really where I'm going to start looking to the setup that Gilgamesh provides for these team fights. It's going to be paramount for them to really pick up and get the pace going.
Herwin in the mid lane will get pushed by Aurora, but will use his beads on time. Unfortunately, Draugr buff does not matter here, and the tier 1 tower in the mid falls against the Jade Dragon. So that feels good for Paul. You're able to push back that pressure. And now things feeling a little bit more even here in the mid. Gore Pyromancer's down, Oni Fury's down, duo lane's been kind of left alone. Both junglers have kind of returned to a state of farming. it feels like outside of maybe what could be a red buff invade here for the Jade Dragons, both of these teams okay with slowing things down a little bit. Aurora's going to be caught between 4 members of the Jade Dragons here. Scary D will even up the numbers a little bit. Didn't see, admittedly, who dropped down that red buff, but with nobody from the Titans going back to it just yet. Maybe a safe bet that it was the Jade Dragons, but look at the damage on the Scary D, and Hurrywin deletes him from the map.
And that's the kind of setup you need. Exactly. The kick on time, and now Sam and the rest of the Dragons are still getting aggressive.
Yeah, delete forward from PBM, but some damage being turned around here. Watch out, Cyclone Spin free casting. Benji deals the final bit of damage. Benji likely able to survive beneath his tier 1 tower. Kier instead he turns around, sees if anyone from the Jade Dragons had overextended, and the answer to that is no. Trade out PBM, but you lose Scary D if you're the Titans.
It's more worthwhile for the Dragons there. You killed off the jungler. Feels great when you do that, especially because Sam was, a level down going into that fight, so now he's been able to find a little more even of a fight here, or at least of experience here. And he'll go back to farming. The patience, though, that the Dragons showcase throughout most of this game, I think is going to end, not necessarily because they're going to get impatient, but because I see, again, a coerce from Fafnir when he's in his ult onto Hurrywin and Panda Cat, who have crazy hard auto attacks, and he's got the Frenzy. This is a guy who wants to shred objectives or kill, 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 and I think this team is designed to do exactly that. If you pair it with eventually what I'm going to assume an upgraded Kirstong from Fine OK, which is right now it's just the base, still good to get rid of the anti-healing. Upgraded, though, is going to then make them take more damage. That's going to be a really, really rough team fight for the Titans. No healing, you're taking 20% more, there's a Frenzy involved, you got 2 coerced auto attackers that are smacking you down. It's a good avenue for the Dragons to get to. However, that is a very specific window where everything lines up perfectly for them. We'll have to see if they're able to find it, because that last fight, the Frenzy goes off and there's nothing to be used behind it.
Feels like right now you want to be fighting around Panda Cat. As we stand on the map, it is a full chin size more than Cyclone Spin has. The build's the exact same, except the chin size are there. Cyclone Spin has 1,500 gold in hand, so Panda Cat effectively was able to just afford the chin size before returning back to base. So this maybe seems then like the right call, Gore. The Jade Dragon starting to group up on the left side of the map here as the Oni Fury has spawned at this point, 18 minutes into the game. We haven't seen the big swing of a team fight in this game here just yet. A lot of individual picks. We'll see if the Tartarus Titans want to tilt the scales, though, as the Oni Fury gets pulled by the Jade Dragons, and it is melting quickly. Half HP remaining on the objective, but Aurora blinks for it. He's got something to say about it. The disruption in the back line may be too much for the Jade Dragons, but Panda Cat's not concerned because it's only Aurora. Aurora is left alone, and Aurora has to dash away. Scary D locked in place. Aegis will save his life only for a little bit, but the ultimate effectively evens things out. Panda Cat finally gets the kill onto Aurora, and the Jade Dragons have a one-man advantage.
They get a kill, and they're going to get this Fury. They dropped it relatively low. I honestly thought that Cyclone Spin was maybe going to jump immediately onto the Fury and trying to strip it away, force the Dragons to make an awkward decision to re-engage, but the Titans let it hang and refuel. And now they're in a good spot to make a rotation, at least for a Pyromancer. I don't imagine starting an FG with 4 people started, but they've got the burn. They're going to go for it.
Frenzy is still there, and PBM can drop the coerce on a target, and chin size triple bow build might feel pretty good for Panda Cat. This one is going quickly. In the time that I've finished that sentence, the Fire Giant has gone down for the Jade Dragons, and Gore, it could be better. There's a fight on the back end. Benji leaps on away as the ultimate from Panda Cat flies. But with Scary D and Benji both half HP, looks like the Jade Dragons will get the Fire Giant, they'll get the Pyromancer, and they'll have plenty of gold to spend.
And I'm going to give them even more props, because that was more than just a well-executed and well-timed Fire Giant. That was patience, right? Hey, we could dive in. Like, there are only 4 of them. We could slaughter this team. But the patience to pull back, get the Pyro, and instead reset for towers, it's a mentality. Again, we've seen them kind of half and half. Some of these games chasing kills, and some of these games playing the objectives. The objective playing team is the one that has the 3 wins on it, and that's exactly what they're doing right now. And this is going to be, it should be a massive swing. I mean, no one's defending this Phoenix.
Yeah, and just now the Tartarus Titans, the last couple members are able to get back to base.
It's gone.
And that is melting so quickly. The only reason I don't start ramping up into a fight there is because by the time my ramp would have finished, the Phoenix was already gone, and so the Jade Dragons get away with one. Look at the gold in hand for literally everyone. 2K plus, at least, for every single member of the Jade Dragons here. 3,000 for Panda Cat. It feels like every time Panda Cat's gone back to base,
he just gets a tier 3.
He's full bought an item. He's going to full buy an Odysseus bow right now. Animosity ends up getting completed for Hurrywind there in the mid lane. Talk about a power spike. You get FG, you get a Phoenix, you go back and buy full tier 3 items, and now the Jade Dragons can choose mid or left to run down.
I think following that conversation, this is like more caster talk than anything. Go to the Fire Giant. The first thing I did was inventory all of the relics, right? Because it makes sense. Make sure you know what's up
They're
so you
all
can
still
see
there.
what's done. They're all there. They didn't have to use one. There was no Frenzy was popped, no Cursed Ankh, no Sunder. They just got away with it.
Have we seen a full like team fight? Like
That-
we
I mean,
saw
that red buff skirmish?
The red buff skirmish was as close as we've gotten, I think, to a full-on fight.
And even then, it was kind of like, Mike, you're a little ahead of us. We're not going to go in, man. Sorry. And he dies, and they left.
Well, this feels like why. It feels like these individual targets that the Jade Dragons have identified have gotten too low. Gore, you like the call from Cyclone Spin here, who's not going to finish off the tower entirely. There might be enough minions there to get it done, but he's got to go back. Cyclone Spin has got to get here because the Phoenix died quickly last time, and now there's full tier 3 items additionally since the last Phoenix Siege commenced. Benji half HP here, a little bit of healing coming from Paul to keep the Osiris in the fight longer. But now Aurora, it's got to make something happen on the back line. 3 men of the Jade Dragons disrupted, but look at Fine OK running down Paul in the back. Panda Cat melts down Aurora here with ease, and it's 3 men controlled by Fine
4.
OK. Make it 4 as the Cullen rips through the Titans team. Hurrywind does the damage. Scaredy bye-bye for the 3rd time this game.
I mean, that's just good on Fine. Okay, zones out, immediately Cursed Ankh, but Paul's got a kill.
There's a turn back for the Titan. It is melting quickly here. There is no chance for the Tartarus Titans.
Wow.
22 minutes clean for the Jade Dragons. Gore, and this is not it's lopsided in like the gold and item department, things like that. In all reality, what is it? It's 5 to 6 kills. The Jade Dragons had a single kill more than the Titans did that game, I think, by the end of it. If it was more than one, it wasn't more than a couple. That just felt like the farm and the build-up and the objectives just felt so consistent, and the Titans never saw that window to fight.
It came on that 5-on-5 where the Titans had a plan. Like that draft, it was telegraphed. This is what we're going to do, but there's only a few ways to fight that exact kind of draft, and they had the ways to counter it. Like, okay, you can heal. Maybe I'll heal our damage. Oh, we'll just throw the Cursed Ankh.
Yeah.
And it didn't really help that Fine OK zoned 3, then 4
Right,
people.
4.
Cursed Ankhed Paul and forced him to sit in Fountain during the pretty much entirety of the left Phoenix Siege into the Titan Siege.
Yeah, Gore, this is what we expected from the Dragons, to break out of that
was good.
consistency matrix, the vortex that has gotten those teams bunched up in the middle of the pack here in the SPL. Can they repeat that performance in Game 2? We got to wait till after this break to find out.
Look, every single year, the SPL just keeps getting better. Season 7 was incredible, and in Season 8, I'm sure our players are going to take their game to the next level. But in order to do that, they're going to need the best gear they can get their hands on. And that's why I'm so excited to announce the title sponsor for Season 8 of the SPL is Alienware. Yeah, that Alienware. Our players are getting the best of the best in computer gaming. These Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition PC setups are insane. Not only will these be the PCs that the players will compete on once we are in studio, but Alienware is also providing one for each player at their home setup to make sure their practice is as good as possible. Now let's get down to brass tacks. The specs on these Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition desktops are amazing. An AMD Ryzen 9 16-core processor.
That's a lot of cores.
That's plenty of processing power.
Plenty of cores.
If you want to stream, this is the way to go.
I know a lot about my cores, so. I mean, Pilates, right?
64 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM.
What? Is that true?
That is true. I mean, this thing has 64 gigs of DDR4 RAM.
Which you can do literally anything with.
Literally anything.
I've never had more than 16 gigs.
That's quadruple the amount I have at home.
And one of the hottest commodities in the PC world, an NVIDIA GeForce 3090 graphics card.
Insane how much better this is than what I have.
The best graphics you really need, Ultra, of course.
Content's gonna look good.
And what's the point of all the power if you can't see it? Players will also be using the Alienware 25-inch 240 Hz monitors.
Man, when I load into scrims with this bad boy, I'm gonna feed so hard. And it's gonna be in perfect picture quality.
We are so excited to be partnering with Alienware for Season 8 of the SMITE Pro League. And the best part is, this VIP treatment, it's not just for the pros. You too can get the best possible SMITE experience. Just go to smitegame.com/Alienware and use code SMITEAW to get special discounts on some of Alienware's best products. Thanks again to Alienware. Make sure you're following them on Twitter and Instagram. That's at Alienware on both platforms. And you can join their community at alienwarearena.com.
And you're telling me an alien wore this?
Hello, Smite fans, and welcome back to the SMITE Pro League powered by Alienware. And it's not just for show when it comes to the video. As far as you guys back at home are concerned, you too can also game in all of the high-tier visibility necessary by using Alienware's products for yourselves. Just head on over to smitegame.com/Alienware. Make sure to plug code SMITEAW. And not only that, but you can also join Alienware's global community by checking out alienwarearena.com. You can also follow them on social media over at Instagram and Twitter at Alienware for both of those socials, and keep up to date with all the goodies and giveaways and whatever else news that they have to offer. And again, thank you so much to Alienware for being our title sponsor here for the SMITE Pro League in Season 8. But Mifflin, the gamer gear aside, Jade Dragons, they look pretty good there up against the Tartarus Titans in Game 1.
They did. It was, as far as kills go, very back and forth for the first 15, 16 minutes of that, and then one kind of team fight, I'm not even sure he really qualified as a team fight, changes that game. And from there, the Jade Dragons just won. But they had established a lead throughout the entirety of this match. I mean, we were joking around in the green room. I said, wow, this is a dead even match 16 minutes in, if you don't look at the gold. Because Jade Dragons somehow were able to control every single one of these neutral cams. And, well, it's not somehow for the neutral objectives. It's the composition there that Fafnir into Double Hunter, air quotes, you can't see it, but I did do it. I know that Soul's a mage. Stop yelling at me, Twitter. Is just really good at doing neutral objectives, and the Jade Dragons utilize it incredibly well.
I think where things kind of collapsed here for the Tartarus Titans is there were definitely instances where Aurora, Scary, Benji, they had moments where they would try to look for that dive potential on the back line there from the Jade Dragons, but it was never as a group. It was never together. It was always this segue of kind of disjointed gameplay that I think ultimately made it possible for the Jade Dragons to kind of just capitalize on that in the backside for the Tartarus Titans, and they just had the kill potential, I think, at a little bit of a faster rate than what the Titans frontline was actually able to accomplish. And all in all, Amuz and Cobb, first game, 100% win rate. Broken character?
No, I don't think so. Maybe the Jade Dragons think so because they're locking it in, but he's a good god. Don't get it twisted. I think Amuzen Cobb certainly has a place within the meta, but very hard to justify picking him when gods like Rom or Artemis exist. He does make equally good use of that auto attack stem build with Silver Branch. His hives give him a good deal of movement speed and attack speed when he's within the range of it. It's just that survivability it's crippling. I mean, if you fall behind on a Muzen Cobb, you're staying behind.
Yeah, that is certainly true, Mifflin, and I'm almost curious to see whether or not Panda Cat's going to resort back to this Amuzen Cobb for picks and bans of game number 2, although I have a feeling, Mifflin, that might have just been a Panda Cat exclusive given the circumstances he was facing with that Izanami, Loki, and the Tartarus Titans compositions on the opposite end. And speaking of which, do you think that the Amuzen Cobb was able to accomplish its overall goal of keeping the visuals high on that Loki and Izanami?
I mean, I'd say so. I mean, the performance speaks for itself, right? He survived just fine. I'm not sure how much of it was rooted from Amuzen Cobb by nature of the god, or if it was just the fact that the Jade Dragons were establishing so much dominance on the map throughout the entirety of that match. It's yet to be seen, but it served the purpose that it was created for, that it was picked for. He destroyed objectives. He was doing tons of damage in the neutral fights. I'm not going to argue against it when it wins like that.
And that does put a little bit of a damper, though, on the Tartarus Titans. Interesting to see Jade Dragons, though. They're not going to try and change anything up, really. Would have to anticipate that it's going to be a Morgan Le Fay ban as their third choice, given that Tiamat, Yamoja, already similar themes to what we saw from them in game number 1 during the picks and bans phase. But the Tartarus Titans, they've got a slight switch up of their own. Mifflin, do you like this shift towards prioritizing the Fafnir ban away?
Yeah, I think so. It essentially removes that double Hunter strategy from the map, or if you do still want to rock Soul plus Hunter, you can do so, but you're going to take a pretty sizable DPS drop from losing the Coerce from Fafnir. And as Aggro was saying in that first set, Fafnir's probably just the best Guardian in Smite Pro League right now, so...
Starting to feel like it, huh?
It feels like... I'm still a Yamoja believer. I mean, there's something about Riptide and River's Rebuke and your auto attacks healing your teammates that makes me think she's really good, but Fafnir is certainly the best Guardian so far as setting up for kills.
And as far as aggressive compositions are concerned, I think that Fafnir is also going to, as you mentioned, make it a little bit more difficult for the Jade Dragons to want to resort back to that Soul, given that the objective shred could be a little bit more questionable without that Draconic form boost up. But the Odin ban as well, and Mifflin, would you expect them to resort to the Osiris one more time, or do you think that the Tartarus Titans can maybe take their bets elsewhere?
Well, Paul had said that he thinks Morgan Le Fay is incredibly strong, and, well, she's still available, and Tiamat's taken off the board, so could be one place to go. We know the Jade Dragons love that pick. Hurrywin has taken it at every single opportunity, so this could act as a ban for the Titans, essentially. Even if Paul doesn't necessarily want to play it himself, at least strip away that comfort pick from Hurrywin.
Paul and not playing power picks it's not something that goes together.
Fair enough.
Morgan Le Fay certainly going to find her way in the hands of the Tartarus Titans. Granted, Jade Dragons, they still have plenty of strong options to go alongside it. Artemis going to be the first one that they elect as an immediate response. I think that introduces a nice aspect of team fight that Jade Dragons can now begin to shape the rest of their draft around. Not only that, but Gilgamesh still up for grabs. Amir, however, is going to be the next candidate of choice here, but that does pair very nicely with what we were just talking about in terms of all this frontline prioritization between these two teams in the initial picks and bans. Fafnir being taken away. So do you think that Amir might have been the last best standing aggressive option open?
He's definitely one of the best ones and has a great matchup into Morgan Le Fay herself. She can't deal with walls at all. I mean, get caught in the jungle, going to get caught out by PBM pretty consistently. I also just like this lane as a whole, assuming that it is going to be the duo lane, which I think
what year is it?
A fair assumption. Yeah, 2012, by the way. Ymir and Artemis together means that Freeze is going to always be followed up by Transgressor's Fate. It's just a CC extension tool, and inside the early game, I don't care who you're bringing on the side of the Titans. If you get hit by that CC chain, you're losing at least 50% of your HP. Do that only once inside the lane, well, you've lost all your pressure until you head back to base. I love this draft from the Dragons.
Well, Fafnir or not, Soul still looking like the go-to here for Hurrywin, and when paired alongside of all of that burst damage that Amir and Artemis have presented, makes perfect sense why the Soul could feel pretty solid here yet again, and not only that, but I think the Separate also a relatively useful tool when dealing with the likes of Camazotz, Morgan Le Fay, that Bat out of Hell. I think taking decent time to channel as well leaves him fairly susceptible, I think, to the soul combination of that Solar Burst Supernova, aka the Barra combo.
You call that the... Why is that the Barra combo?
It's the Barra combo, that's what he said.
Barracuda said that.
Yes.
Barracuda said that using the 2 and then the ult is his combo.
Yes.
Well, he also claimed backstepping is the Barra backstep, and that's just pressing S on your keyboard?
Well, actually, there was a tier list that exists somewhere out there on SMITE Twitter where Allied actually went through and conned or coined everybody's backstep variation. I'm
And
sorry
where did he put the Barra backstep?
It was up there.
It was up there.
It was up there.
I seem to remember it was like the last step, like Lazarus backstep, like that's what they called it. Wasn't that top tier?
Again, there was a few different iterations of that form. For example, mine was the Taco Tussle.
That's a backstep. The Taco Tussle is a backstep.
Yes.
All right, so maybe break down the bans before I have a conniption.
Well, for the Jade Dragons, they're going to take away the Freya and Izanami. I think the Freya is the most interesting one to see here, Mifflin, just because Freya, not necessarily a god that we've seen a whole lot of lately, but when it comes to Artemis exclusively, that boxing matchup, I think, could be a little bit problematic, and for good reason, the Jade Dragons don't really want to seem like they tried to deal with it. However, for the Tartarus Titans, they've got Camazotz, they've got this Morgan Le Fay, they have the Kuzenbo Mifflin, but do you feel like these are all pieces of a puzzle that coincide very well together right now, or where would you like to see this Tartarus Titans draft kind of end up?
Again, same note that I had last time around. It's really hard to engage with this Tartarus Titans draft as it stands right now. I mean, Kuzenbo Sumo Slam, great CC, single target. Watery Grave, great CC, can't really pick where people are going to go, so I want to see a more consistent engage tool get drafted here by the Tartarus Titans. Something along the lines of a Ymir Freeze or an Athena Taunt or literally anything that is just a cone of, I'm going to hit you with it, now my team's going to hit you, because right now the Titans don't have that.
Well, you're talking about consistency, but when it comes to Thanatos, he can be one of the most volatile jungle picks, I feel like, in terms of hit or miss potential. And the execute factor as well, I think, is going to introduce a really cool team fighting aspect here for the Jade Dragons, given that they already have so much damage, Mifflin. So do you think that this is kind of the Dragons alluding to the fact that they're just looking to rely on Sam as that ultimatum cleanup factor?
I think so. Also, just a great way to get early game pressure. I mean, the Hand of Death is just going to do 40% of your HP bar at level 3 with that Death Scythe. I can't believe this draft has come up the way it has for the Titans. I saw the Vamana get locked in while you were talking, and I was just patiently waiting my turn to speak, as most people do in conversation. Don't do that, actually. It's a poor taste. But anyway, Vamana is not the CC core that we wanted, or I personally wanted, from the Tartarus Titans. And it seems like the Titans, in both games now, have drafted teams that, if they win out in the early game, can win incredibly hard for the rest of the match, but it's all off the back of one thing, that spearhead W key strategy. We're going to pull a lead, and we're going to walk you down. That's exactly what this Titans draft does well. Camazotz can blink in, use that Bat Out of Hell as a safety net, and just sit inside the backline. Kuzenbo is going to sit inside your backline, generally in front of the Soul, pop his second ability, and say, don't deal damage or you'll kill yourself. Vamana is going to be doing largely the same thing, but holding left click while he does his. That leaves Morgan Le Fay and Heimdall on their own in the backline to fend for themselves. And even if the Tartarus Titans win out on that initial push in, their peel potential as a team, if they want to shift their strategy, is almost non-existent. Once Watery Grave is down, that's it. That's all your peel.
But as far as the damage output is concerned,
they got it.
For Tartarus, you think they've got it then?
They've got damage.
That of the Jade Dragons?
No.
You don't think it matches?
No, because Artemis does a ton of damage. I mean, the DPS from Artemis might be some of the highest DPS in Smite right now with the current bow builds. Double Hunter draft, double Hunter air quotes, gotta make sure I get those air quotes in there. Soul, her damage output, incredibly strong, a little bit more consistent as well than Morgan Le Fay's, easier to apply inside of the team fight. They're able to separate these engagements with Ymir. It's so, and even Thanatos into Vamana is a good counter matchup. Back when Vamana was meta, it was, okay, we'll draft Nemesis to strip his defense and then shred him, or we'll draft and execute, drop him low, and 40% HP, we'll just kill him from there. I think the Jade Dragons may have just straight up won P's and B's.
Well, drafts can always look great, but what happens on paper isn't necessarily what happens in game. So for the Tartarus Titans here, even though they've got the odds against them, for your take, Mifflin.
Unless they win the early game. Then they're going to win really
And the
hard.
early game, is that dependent solely on just them being able to find picks or just team fights? Well, we'll get a chance to find out either way. You can hold your thoughts on that, Mifflin, because we've got all the game action to let us know what the real deal. And Dolson and Gore, you guys can have fun.
Well, if the early game is the key here for the Tartarus Titans, maybe you're feeling okay if you're a Titans player or a Titans fan. Game number 1, the Titans had life in the early game, but the Jade Dragons slowly spiraled things out of control. My name's Dolson, Goremizer, and Doug are still with me to bring in the action. Game number 2 between the Dragons and the Titans. And Gore, damage on damage is the name of the game here for the Jade Dragons.
I'm excited to watch it. And Dave, Cyclone Spin has joined the Benevolence Club. We've got 4 of them in the game as of right now, too.
There's going to be 6.
In the duo lane.
There're going to be 6 after Hurrywin
the
and
mid
Paul.
laners.
They finish off the Charon's Coin and the Warlock Staff, and then pick up Benevolence after that.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
After what happened in Game 1.
You got to. He was 1,000 gold.
It felt like it.
Like
at
out of
points,
nowhere.
Cyclone Spin did. And I want to make sure I quickly say both of these things. Cyclone Spin did nothing in lane in Game 1. Panda Cat also did nothing in lane in Game 1.
Yes.
And it felt like Cyclone Spin was still a full Tier 3 item behind by the time the mid game was rolling around. It was a Silver Branch at one point, and then it was the Chin Size at another point, and then it was an Odysseus bow by the end of the game. It felt like at every turn Cyclone Spin just didn't have the gold to keep up. And I guess it's a necessary change if this is going to be the start for what I thought was just going to be mid laners, but now it's become hunters as
it's
well.
if if you can't beat them, join them, right? And that's where Cyclone Spin's at. Is what, you know what? I don't want to be 1,000 gold behind. I'll just do what you were doing, and hopefully things will go and float the same. I'm also interested in watching Sam. So far, this is the 5th game for Thanatos this year. 4 of them, up to this point, have been the Dragons. So guess what? All 5 of them are the Dragons. But out of those 4, Sam's won 3. So this is going to be the make or break. He's got a 75% win rate for the Dragons right now. We'll see if he can teeter that up to an 80% with this win, or if it'll drop down to a 60% with a Titans win. But it's been an interesting pick because literally nobody else plays him. It's just Sam that picks up this Thanatos. And Taco mentioned it, but it's so volatile.
It is volatile, just like this duo lane might be volatile, Gore, with PBM on the Amir, Panda Cat on the Artemis. Well, once that hits level 6, the chain CC is just going to be so difficult for Cyclone Spin and Aurora to deal with. Though it feels like I don't know how you feel about this Kuzumbo pick here, Gore, for Aurora. You know, there were moments in Game 1 where he was doing his best to try to create some space, some disruption. Felt like Aurora, especially with Blink on the Kuzumbo. Once he hit level 5 there in Game 1, was at least able to find the backline, right? Get some pushes, get some disruption. Just felt like there wasn't much follow-up from the rest of the team.
I think there's something to be said for, once again, Artemis being a little more immobile on the other side, maybe opening up some opportunities for that Kuzumbo to get aggressive, get something done, really set up Cyclone Spin. But then there's the conversation of Heimdall's damage after a push at level 3. Is it going to be enough? With minions, maybe.
PBM gets pushed back through some minions here, so he's down to half HP. Beads on both of the hunters here, and then Blink and Sunder for Aurora and PBM respectively. Cyclone Spin and Aurora, they're going to pull off the purple buff here, but look at this. Hurrywin rotating over from the mid lane. Double freeze from PBM. There's a crystal over on the other side. And look at the damage from Hurrywin, who will nearly get the kill onto Aurora, but Panda Cat gets it for free. Cyclone Spin takes the crystal away, but it's first blood to the Jade Dragons.
I mean, if you're going to invade like that, well, maybe you at least get the buff. Oh, no, wait, purple buff goes right on to PBM. So they get everything that they would have wanted there for the Dragons. I guess they technically lost out a little of experience on the little, what are those, manticores that are hanging out in the purple buff. But they just got it back.
Will get his anyway. if he chooses to go get it. But yeah,
who needs it?
Yeah, who needs it? Right. Jade Dragons feeling good now over here in the duo lane. And so we didn't see much action in the duo lane there in game number 1, but now see a little bit of it here. And that was a pretty simple rotation for Hurrywin, a pretty telegraphed purple buff invade from Aurora and Cyclone Spin. Weren't doing it quick enough to avoid a lot of the damage from Hurrywin. Unfortunately for Hurrywin, Gore doesn't have the Charon's coin yet, so didn't get the stack, but does now. There is a Charon's coin for Hurrywin in the mid lane. There's also a Benevolence for Hurrywin in the mid lane. Goremizer, there's a Benevolence for Final K in the solo lane. We are 4 out of 5 Benevolences for the Jade Dragons here.
And you know what? I wonder if they're feeling benevolent. Like, if it's a transcendent, it's a mindset more than just an item for the dragons here.
Benji got one as well.
Look, you got to match him. Warlock Staff just bought. Did he have enough? Item purchase. Where are we going here? Oh,
Ward, no! That's the worst thing he could have bought.
Paul didn't have enough. Look, he just doesn't have enough gold. He hadn't been able to accomplish as much. That Hell game, look, they had more fighting in the mid lane as Hell versus Soul than we've seen out of Morgan Le Fay so far. And that's actually a little surprising to me. I feel like Morgan Le Fay is going to be able to pick that damage up a little bit. Might honestly just be because Thanatos theoretically is going to facilitate a little bit more, although Sam hasn't gotten his hands on hands dirty, I guess, as early on as he did last time.
There it is. Locks it in. Benevolent.
Oh, there. You said that, and I lost it. I was like, what did I say?
No, you're right. So now, everyone who can buy or could have bought a starter item has bought one. 8 out of 10 are the benevolents, and the other 2 are mannequins for both of the junglers. Unfortunately, jungle, they're not able to take advantage of benevolence at the moment, but everyone else in the game does. So, Gore, if there's gold...
You say unfortunately there, but if it had been 10 out of 10 benevolence, I think like I could hear like Ajax retching at the idea of the balance.
You know, junglers don't get enough farm anyway. They need the benevolence to help them, blah, 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 things like that. No, but at this point in the game, right, if there's a gold lead, if there's an XP lead, it's going to be because of the play on the map. There's not this big benevolence advantage on one side or the other, so all else is equal there. And could be a gold or XP advantage in the solo lane, but Benji on the Vamana slippery enough to umbrella his way out of the gank.
Yeah, this is going to be an awkward one for Sam to find ganks early on. Granted, so there's 2 stages of Thanatos. There's the I'm going to absolutely just destroy your health bar.
I like that one.
At the early game stage, which lasts a good 9 levels minimum, where your scythe, especially onto a carry, a mage, the jungler, the assassin on the other team, is just going to decimate any health that they have. And then you start to begin the transformation from, I do a lot of damage to you, to, I can do some damage. Like, I'm a good setup potential, but I've got a nice silence, I've got an execute, and that's where I become kind of the transition to a utilitarian, that's probably not the right word, utility assassin that comes through there. I had the first half right, it was the last half. It's just the utility part.
We don't have to discuss this. I forgot which that is.
If I'm honest with you, same. Look, let's roll it back. When was the last time I would have heard and actually used the word utilitarian to describe, well, I guess, a government, right?
Right. It was a government.
High school. I graduated in 2012, so that has been
beats me, Gore.
almost a decade.
Totally beats me there. I'm intrigued though. Look, Paul got this Warlock staff in game 1.
Now I'm
on the Hell. Now another Warlock staff here for Paul. I feel like we've seen Warlocks picked up a good bit, but it's largely around the Baba Yaga. You get the free stacks thanks to your passive. Maybe Gore's just a good enough item to pick up on maybe a bunch of different carries out of the mid lane. It's been unique though with Morgan Le Fay because as Final Cast, you use his ult just to be safe against Benji. With Morgan Le Fay, I feel like we've seen some decent variety on those build paths. We've seen Pythax piece early. We've seen lifesteal style builds, and Paul, I guess, just likes Warlock staff enough to pick it up on Morgan Le Fay as well.
It's not a bad item to pick up, although now Aurora going to get stunned out, and this is where Sam could really pick up.
He's going to connect with the axe.
Execute.
Oh no, Aurora. He's out of threshold, maybe with some of that healing, but he's going to get the stun on the other end here. Sanford Soccer's just got to hit the abilities to pick up the kill here, but if he's able to send Aurora back towards Panda Cat, it would have been a kill for Panda, but instead Sanford Soccer will take an easy one. And now it's a 1.5k or so lead for the Jade Dragons just on the back end of a couple kills.
Very similar to Game 1 in how this is progressing, though, right? Very slow, methodical play. The picks are planned out, and you can see kind of the calculations of where can we pick you apart. Aurora, in that case, is a little overextended, and it just works out well for Sam to be in the neighborhood for it. But it's not pulling up the same way, right? 2 kills, very slow, still about 1,500 gold as you had highlighted, and that is where that lead was, except last time it was all Panda Cat. It was 1,000 gold lead on a single person on the Dragons. Now it's spread out a little bit, which admittedly I would think is a little more beneficial. That is going to be some health pots, it's going to be some mana pots, some wards, but it's not the end of the world because 1,500 gold, that's 300 per person here, and it's not even at that 1,500 marker, it's just over that 1,500 mark. So it's not really facilitating like we saw last game of full tier 3. I say that, I look down and I see an Oboe completely over Cyclone Spin, but we'll assume that he has some gold in his pocket.
Yeah, Cyclone Spin will have to go back, spend up some of that gold, as PBM will have to use the Shard's Vice to stay alive, but the damage for Hurrywind completely turns this fight around, and then the wall from PBM secures his escape. Aurora will have to push his way through the air on back to safety. Last bit of damage from Hurrywind connects on the backside of the fight. That's a 2v3, if you even consider it that, because Mike immediately had to leave, but Hurrywind just hits a huge ultimate there, nearly turns it around to the tune of a kill. Could start up the Gold Fury instead.
Shards of Ice getting burned down is maybe a little bit of a detriment, but you realistically only lost Supernova for that, right? Like you're not too worried.
No, I thought it might find its way to Cyclone Spin, but Cyclone Spin backed away into lane. No chance to steal it away, and the Jade Dragons, they will group up, find their way onto the Gold Fury, and lock it down for themselves.
That's one of those ults. We haven't seen an Anvil of Dawn in a long time. Thor does not make his way into a lot of Pro League games so far this year, but it's a similar concept, right? I'm gonna go up. Anybody around? But if I can fight, I might fight, but realistically it's a vision. And I mean, look at it. They had one ward to maybe try and catch out. I think I see 2. So the Dragons weren't really relying on the map vision there. So Sam just kind of making sure they had a nice little breadth between them. And that's all because, look, they forced Paul ult, they forced Scary D's ult, and they forced them back to base with that fight. It was a very easy funnel to that Fury. And now that lead gets to grow a little further for the Dragons, and it starts to open up some of these conversations where I'm looking again towards Cyclone Spin when he's going to start finishing off these items, what he's going to buy, because Panda Cat has not only got more consistent backs, but he's starting to stack on the items now.
It was a pretty good rotation for Cyclone Spin, actually, able to push in that entire wave, gets the single Harpy on the Jade Dragon side of the map, will get the single Harpy on his side of the map, so he's going to get to go back, likely complete an item and a little bit there afterwards as well. Aurora, the most recent to be damage checked by Hurrywind here, and over half of the damage is missing on that Kuzenbo. Pyromancer started by the Jade Dragon. Scary D close by, but Scary D, as he's been so far for the first 11 minutes of the game, just shy of finding any action so far for the Tartarus Titans. The Desk Express score that this Tartarus Titans draft might need to win the early game, and we have not seen that.
Not at all. Every neutral objective at this point has gone the way of the Dragons. I mean, they have not been able to step forward. It's 2 Draugrs. I actually like having that counter. The closest you've got it is a couple of Totem of Coups going over there, but look, at the end of the game, we're not talking about how crucial that that first Totem of Coup went. We're talking about the Fire Giants, your Pyromancers, your Furies, and right now, all of those have been scooped up by the Dragons. Not the end of the world, but it is definitely starting to amass into an uncomfortable gold lead for 12 minutes into the game. The Titans are really going to have to dig their heels in to turn this around, and I would say, with Morgan Le Fay, with what Vamana can do late game, they have a lot of potential. Vamana's picked up that Frostbound Hammer. It's going to open up a lot of fun conversations in the team fight, but I was saying that last game, and we saw how all the quote-unquote team fights went. There were practically none.
Well, it's so unique, and that's why I agree with your point there, Gore, where feels like this game, while going towards the Dragons, and still could go towards the Dragons if Aurora gets taken down here. He won't. It's scary to eat some damage from Hurrywind. This game, it totally changes once the solo laners join in the fight. Benji has felt comfortable in this lane against FineOK. FineOK has felt comfortable in this lane against Benji. But it feels like Vamana is such a... You got like a one-track mind when you're trying to fight. You want to go big, you want to walk into the back line, you want to Frostbound Hammer someone to death. A lot like what's happening to FineOK right now. Benji okay to walk beneath the tier 1 tower, a blink burnt. So that's a worthwhile trade, it feels like, for Benji there, who saves his blink. And at some point, while there is a lead for the Dragons, they're going to have to worry about this Vamana. If there's enough peel, if there's enough self-peel to get away from the big old baby wreaking havoc in your backline.
And it is, I mean, Sunder, always good to try and help take down something like a Vamana, but if Vamana gets big and, like you said, into the backline, you need more anti-heal. They've got a Divine Ruin as of right now, and that's it to deal with it. Maybe a Pestilence, it's something that FineOK picked up last game, so might pick that up. But there's no Brawlers, there's no Cursed Ankh online, which are some of the more typical ways to deal with the Vamana. And that's where we used to see him run rampant. I mean, anti-heal was the name of the game. Vamana was in, I think, virtually every single... I'm thinking Season 2 at this point, but he was in every game, and he was someone that would hard carry because of the Frostbound Hammer, as well as some of the other items right then. And of course, the sprint at the time gave you haste, which made things really, really nice for a Vamana in your ult. So you could chase people down pretty easily. Now it's a lot easier. You can see with the Cursed Ankh pickup, even upgraded there from PBM.
Smart.
They're looking at ways to deal with Benji. It's also going to help against Scary D and all the survivability that Kemazoth brings.
And it's well-timed. PBM hits level 12, so of course it's well-timed, but Now we're starting to get to that phase where these solo laners are going to make appearances. Fury's going to be up here in less than a minute, so you might start to see some solo laners rotate their way on over. What's scary is that this game has been quiet. Every single player on either side is equal in level. Of course, there's going to be maybe a half level here and there, but as we stand right now, everyone is equal in level. A Cyclone Spin grabs a 1 level lead. Aurora is 3 levels down to PBM, so if there is a fight around this Fury or in the mid lane or somewhere else where the Jade Dragons choose to take it, it's a non-upgraded Blink on one side against an upgraded Ankh and an upgraded Sunder there for PBM, so that there's an inherent advantage just in relics and the usability and the viability of those relics if the Jade Dragons are able to find a fight. And they're obviously feeling comfortable around this Oni Fury. Aurora blinks his way through here. Oni Fury taken low in the back line. The Kuzenbo spins around, but there's a stun and damage onto the Fury. Bye-bye, Aurora. 3 kills for the Jade Dragons now. Cyclone Spin has to Bifrost away. We'll see where Sanford Soccer ducks down.
He's going to immediately stun Cyclone Spin. Now it's just who can they pick up that's left.
That was a big old fear, and that might slow down the Jade Dragons from re-engaging on this fight. But that is clean as you like. It's an Oni Fury secured, it's Aurora in alone, and then it's 2 kills on the back end of things. 0-3 for the Kuzenbo, and now 0-1 for Cyclone Spin. The left side of the map has just not felt comfortable for the Tartarus Titans at all this game. And that was a chance score for maybe the Vamana to make a difference. I say a chance just because both teams met. But that fight never really felt like it was going to be comfortable for the Tartarus Titans.
I mean, there was that point once we saw Aurora blink in, and it was kind of going mental math in my head. I was like, well, he's level 10, so like you said, no second relic for him. The ult came off just before the silence from Sam, so it made it look a little better and keep things close. But not as much as you would have liked if you're a Titans fan.
There's a little damage onto Benji here. Scary D close by. Haven't seen much from the Kamizazi either. Bad out of hell might be the first one I've seen this game that's going to be used defensively. Oh, but Sanford Soccer locked in place. He's able to get into the hovering Death and stay alive, so Death escapes.
Tick!
Oh wait, the tick damage, it got him, so finally the Tartarus Titans on the board as Paul will pick up 1. Tough for Sanford Soccer. That's a killing spree ended. Maybe still a fight to be had, though.
I think I even saw him laughing about it there in his death screen, though, so maybe not too worried overall. But that's 30 seconds without a Thanatos, and again, 16 minutes in, Thanatos maybe isn't your hard damage dealer, but it is going to be the assassin killer, or the assassinator, I guess, in this case, just because he's going to help clear out these frontliners. Very easy to deal with a Vamana if at a very small threshold you're able to just kill him dead. But now it's all about that Pyromancer.
Well, Pyromancer started up here. There's a 1v1 over in the dual lane as well. Titans secure the Pyro, but now PBM is left alone. Hurrywind is there to provide some safety for his support, and so PBM will survive. Hurrywind will as well. It looks like everyone in the dual lane has also survived, but Panda Cat felt much more comfortable in that 1v1, it looked like. Tusky got used, Cyclone Spin had to ult out of it to avoid the stun, and in the meantime, Panda Cat resumed autoing down that Heimdall. And so the Hunter's still equal in level gore, but Panda Cat maybe feeling strong at this point. We've talked a lot about Artemis so far in this phase in particular, just because of how strong this bow build has looked. Tusky also does a big old chunk of damage. I mean, that starts to rip through a team fight. And suddenly you're feeling a bit like a mage, where one ability is chunking down the enemy team, and so Panda Cat's in a great spot here, 18 minutes in.
And you have to go back at, what was it, a Barracuda interview before they ended up playing against the Dragons. One of the things he had said was that he really wished he could have Panda Cat's Tusky AI.
That's right.
Just because, for some reason, it seems like Panda Cat's Tusky always does the right thing compared to some of the other Tuskies. And so far, we've seen it. That boar has been very helpful for them. I will be worth noting, though, within the span of about a minute, the Titans got their first kill and first neutral objective of the game, so that's a good pickup pace, especially because the desk had highlighted they needed that early game. They hadn't had the early game. They haven't really had much of a game until now. That 16-minute mark really started the first turnaround for them.
I'm really putting you on the spot here, Gordon. I'll pause and see if Aurora makes his way into the back line, which he won't. Final K getting run down by Benji here, so this has started to become a little bit more prevalent, where Benji just uses the ultimate and tries to solo out Final K, but now a lot of that utility is gone. Winds of Shamash will be dashed on out of by Benji, but he's going to be caught between at least 4 here. Lots of damage into Sanford Soccer as well as a tower shot, but Sam will survive this time.
Wow!
No good. It's a hovering death. Somebody crashes right back down, and Aurora uses the ultimate and ends up getting the kill onto Sanford Soccer, but it's a double kill from Panda Cat to shift the scales.
I was simultaneously surprised he went up and got out, and then doubly surprised he dove back down. He was dead, man. I don't know if you needed the execute, but it did help set up a second kill for the Dragons.
And there's a wall from PBM to try and keep Scary Scary D at bay, but that won't be the case because Scary D will blink on over it. But luckily the fight fizzles out here. So the Tartarus Titans show some face, get another kill on a Sanford Soccer, the only member of the Dragons who's died here so far. But hasn't quite been enough, Gore. We are just shy of 20 minutes into this game, and it's a 5K gold lead for the Jade Dragons. And they might have eyes for this FG.
They should. I mean, what are they going to do to stop you? Right now, Benji's not available. Paul and Scary can put up a fight, but I don't know if I like Cyclone being this far up.
Whoa, that was a really nice little bit of play there from PBM. It was a drop kick, and then the wall dropped down by Mike. I'm not sure which wall he got connected with. Fire Giant secured by the Jade Dragon. Scary, he goes in, but he shouldn't have, and neither should a Cyclone Spin. Panda Cat's got a double kill. He's got a rampage, and the Jade Dragons got 5 members with FG. 2 down for the Titans for at least 30 seconds.
And it's an unfortunate spot. Not a lot of damage to turn around now. I mean, you've got Paul's damage output, and that's about it. Aurora is just plastered against the wall. Look, one more hit is all it should take here. No, they're not. Finally, someone gets it. Fine, okay, gets it with the leap there. But the big issue that I have is that that's honestly maybe one of the only plays the Titans could make in a moment like that. I mean, look, it's 9-2. The kills say one thing, but the Dragons have been up perpetually, like 4K, 6K for the last 5 minutes now. And so it feels like that was the only way if Cyclone or Scary are able to steal away that FG to really stabilize the ship.
Oh man, another Phoenix goes down quickly. We saw plenty of that in game number 1 and continues here in game 2. The Tartarus Titans just haven't really had a leg to stand on. And we're talking about a 5K gold lead, Gore, and over the last like 2 minutes that's doubled. We're at 10K gold in the lead now for the Jade Dragons. Everyone is ahead, and there's a lot of gold in the back pocket for the Jade Dragons with 2K at least for Sanford Soccer. Primal Fury is going to get taken here, so that's going to boost up just a little bit more. Panda Cat's going to be able to finish off, you know, maybe the starter item, maybe that final item there in his build. The Jade Dragons, they're on easy street, Gore, and they can kind of pick and choose, I think, where they want to take these fights, and it's kind of similar to game 1, where the Titans haven't shown that they can fight back in a team fight yet.
Oh, I thought, okay, different thoughts. I don't know who I'm more impressed with right now. I mean, you've got Fine OK 1-0-6, Herwin's James Bond, he's 007. You've got the 008 perfect support Slashline, 8 out of the 9 kills.
Was there
there
008
for PBM?
the
Probably.
James Bond universe?
I mean, I assume because it's like just they're numerically. I wonder who number 1 is. I wonder
It's
who
a shame
gets the
Fine OK has a kill here
knowledge
because
of
we would have
it.
had 6, 7, 8.
That would have been sick. 5-0-3 from Panda Cat. He's finding a lot of the kills. It just feels good to be the Dragons right now. You've got a massive gold lead. You haven't had any resistance in a lot of these fights. That being said, that Fire Giant was painfully close compared to what it could have been. Well, maybe not as close as they think it was, but still something that could have been maybe a good turnaround point for the Titans. Now you've got one Phoenix down. Scary D's just off in the middle of the mid lane, but if they group up, they could find a decent defense.
Man, Scary D has just not been able to get aggressive on this Camazotz. It's good wall, double freeze from Mike, and immediately followed up on by Hurdy Wind to cleave out some damage. Sanford Soccer hovering death. Who does he look for? Well, it's Cyclone Spin. He'll use the beads. Heimdall has reached that point though, Gore. Full build minus the upgraded starter. If Cyclone Spin somehow gets to a point where he can free cast, there will be damage coming from the Titans Hunter.
It was all risk aversion, though. Hey, look at Sam, look at Sam, look at Sam. Phoenix is gone.
Yeah,
left side.
right.
So all of a sudden, they're just able to burn it. They're going to get this tier 2, which realistically, the only reason the Titans are going for that is because they can't aggress into the Phoenix.
This is maybe the last fight of the game that we'll see Aurora alone in the back line, and he will die alone in front of the wall of PBM. Panda Cat has gotten his 6th kill of the game. Benji has ulted, going the wrong way that you want to be going when you've ulted as a Vamana, and all the kills fall from here. The dominoes have tumbled, and in back-to-back games, the Jade Dragons will win in sub-23 minutes.
And being able to pick it up, they made you a liar.
I'm
It's
a
23
liar.
minutes, Dave.
Oh, I'm a liar. Okay, in over 23 minutes we go. They're playing with their food a little bit as the Titans get back into the fountain, but this game will end quickly. Panda Cat unstoppable. 7-0-4 for the Jade Dragons Hunter.
Pretty good.
And that's with everyone having benevolence. You can't call benevolence. You can't ring the alarm here on game 2. Everyone who wanted to buy one was able to get one.
The bells out there.
And this is just a better performance top to bottom from the Dragons.
I mean, yeah, like you said, they played in game 1 pretty much the same style, except it was a little close to the the Titans. Got a couple of kills in game 1. They were farming, mostly consistent, but then a 1K gold lead just shows up all of a sudden for Panda Cat because the benevolence talk in game 1. In game 2, there was no, oh, hey, he's just 1,000 gold ahead. It's just, we got every neutral objective, say for like one Pyromancer. We're beating you in every single fight except for a couple of picks. We're not making as many mistakes. It felt like the Titans were just out of position a few times and not coordinated as well as the Dragons were.
The Titans felt like they lacked setup here in this set, right? Where it felt like it was Aurora getting into the back line, and then nothing happens except maybe Aurora dying.
And now he's in the back line.
And now he's in the back line alone, and nobody else is turning things around. PBM looked good. The Gilgamesh looked good for the Dragons. And the Dragons, in general, looked good. Maybe getting back to some of that old form that we knew and loved from phase number 1 here in the SPL. Jade Dragons, they'll take this one 2-0, and that means we'll take a break, and then the desk will round out the day.
Just give me a second. Gotta recenter myself. Curses! Oh. Curses! Curses! My name's Mifflin. My name's Mifflin. My name's Mifflin. Lane, laugh, love. Jordan, I need you to fucking change your face. Jordan, focus! Yeah, I can do that. Think I can't do that? Curses! All of our competitive players can be nearly as stoic, though. What the f, Jordan? Focus! You gotta keep me in there. I've gathered the women like talismans. Hopefully you guys are watching that last clip alone or with headphones on. Rapid fire, Migny. I literally speak for a living.
Hello, Smite fans, and welcome back to the Smite Pro League powered by Alienware. And that's not the only little tidbits of Smite content that we have available for you guys here on the live broadcast. You can also make sure to check out and follow Smite Pro on the YouTube to keep up with all the myths, whiffs that your heart desires, as well as many other fun little content piece actions. Again, that's Smite Pro on YouTube that you guys can keep up with some outside of the live broadcast content. But Mifflin, set victory here for the Jade Dragons. Got to be feeling pretty good for the team, especially when you consider it was a pretty convincing fashion in which they took this set home.
Talk, I'm going to defend my honor for a second here.
I think it's best for you to not address any of that.
I'm going to address it. And you're right, okay? You, my publicist, everyone at home, Hindu man texting me, don't talk about it. But I'm going to do it. Myths, Whiffs, as an idea for the title of a show, was brought up exactly 1 calendar year ago.
Tell me more.
Avrin came up with that idea. And it has just been stewing on it, I guess. That's the first time I've seen that content. And they're just going to drop it on me at the end of an SPL day? Feels a little bit targeted.
A little bit targeted? Do you think that it was planned that you were here on the desk while that was aired?
I can only imagine.
All right. That's fair.
All right.
Is this that's not really a defense, by the way. That was more like a statement.
And that's my statement.
Thanks for that. As far as the Jade Dragons are concerned.
Oh, yeah, they won. Yeah, good stuff.
They won. The Jade Dragons certainly did win Mifflin, but more importantly, it's the fashion in which they went about getting this victory of that 2-0 set win over the competition. I mean,
do you remember the
Tartarus
team?
Titans were on the takeover, man, and I'm gonna keep it a buck with you, Mifflin. Okay, it might be for the best that the Tartarus Titans try to forget about that game too. Also,
Chad, you didn't see it. She turned around to look at the signs behind us, and it just says Jade Dragons win. And she looked at me with so much fear in her eyes. Yeah, I think Jade Dragons won
so
off the draft. Yeah, okay. Go on.
But no, for real though, the Jade Dragons, honestly, they really did take it to the Tartarus Titans in Game 2. And while it did take a little bit for the action to ramp up, once the ball actually got rolling here for the Jade Dragons, it just kind of seemed as though they just were basically unstoppable. And Panda Cat could not have looked better on the Artemis, even rocking that Convention 2012 skin. Had a light flex, I think, from Panda Cat there, but it's an honorable mention just because of the fact that he was in the dual lane with an Amir.
Yeah, so Jade Dragons, I would argue, legitimately won off a draft this time around. I mean, the Tartarus Titans had a team composition that, if it pulled ahead, could have dominated the game, and that's a big if, because they don't necessarily have the strongest early game pieces on their team outside of that Camazotz. I mean, we said it on the desk earlier on. If Watery Grave goes down and the Titans haven't already won the team fight, they're probably not winning that team fight. Jade Dragons, it felt like every single time they lined up 5 versus 5, waited for it to come through. Oh, Water Grave's down? All right, let's go win. And that's exactly what happens.
This is one of my personal favorites as well. Thank you so much for the Smite Pro Twitter on that, because it truly is what it's starting to feel like in the SPL.
For 2 more weeks.
That Benevolence gold spooling is so nice, though, man. You know how cool it is to like lose lane and still have like 900 gold plus over the opponent? Or even better still, if you're winning lane and then you have like 2,000 gold over everybody else in the game, that's Some good stuff.
Yeah, that's some laner privilege. I play jungle. I'm not allowed to sustain, so I have to have Mana Conceptor or like Bumbo Spear or like Eye of the Jungle. Those are my only options.
Well, fortunately for you, Mifflin, you weren't the one playing today in that jungle role, but we do have one of the players standing by from this set today. It's going to be Panda Cat, the hunter for the Jade Dragons. And Panda, some pretty spicy hunter picks that we saw out of you today. Amus and Cobb, what was that about?
I think in the meta that we're gonna see unfold soon, gods like AMC that are just like really quick at clearing and kind of just maneuver in and out of the lane are gonna become really relevant. I just thought it was good into their team comp, and I kind of wanted to see how it feel, and it felt pretty good. So.
Well, it's always interesting when it comes to you specifically in that hunter role. You kind of seem to be one of the primary hunters that always looks to kind of break outside of what everybody else is doing. And is that something that's like influenced by your team or just something that you take upon yourself individually?
I'd say some things come as recommendations from my teammates, like, oh, why don't you try this? But sometimes I'm just like looking at stuff where I play stuff in ranked. I'm like, this feels really good. Maybe I try it in scrims or in SPL, and I do, and it potentially becomes the meta. I'm not taking what's it called? I'm not taking the title for the benevolence start or anything. I think like there were people who did it way before me and it didn't work out and it didn't look quite as good. But I was scrimming against some people and I'm winning lane and I'm like 1,500 gold down. I'm like, what is happening? So I'm like, I'm just gonna do it, and
Hey,
yeah.
fair reasonings behind it. I think solid reasonings as well when you consider just how impactful gold can be. But taking a kind of a step back and looking at the overall standings and whatnot, you guys had a little bit of a shaky start here to split 2, but as of late have been looking like a pretty dominant force here. Is this the return of the Dragons back to their original form, or how do you think the rest of the split's going to be headed for you guys?
I think we like lost a couple sets that we were in a position to win. We lost a couple pretty easy sets, and some sets we threw pretty hard. And we're gonna be losing to the Bolts because I want to see that Venenu selfie after every game. But yeah, I mean, I think we're right. We're right back on track where we want to be. Headed in the correct direction, kind of getting all in tune and getting ready to just continue on playing and hopefully winning.
Well, certainly looking forward to seeing what we have in store for you guys, or what you guys have in store for us, I should say, the rest of this split. But thank you so much for joining us on the post-game interview, Panda Cat, and enjoy your victory for the rest of the day.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks, Panda. I have been having a really great day, actually. Had some awesome Smite action, a little bit of a spicy 2-0 back-to-back sets. So it's been a pretty good wrap-up. How about you, Mifflin? What's your takeaway? You having a good day?
So far so good. I had a chicken salad croissant sandwich earlier today, and it was like super stale.
So you're fancy?
What?
Oh. I mean, you said croissant.
Yeah, croissants are super fancy talk. Do the thing. I'm going to peach it later. Do this.
We're doing the thing. We're doing the thing. But with that victory there for the Jade Dragons, they're going to be finishing off today with a 4-3 records in that standing that will lead them tied up with the Atlantis Leviathan. So seems as though it's a race to the top now to try and catch up to the Camelot Kings and the Olympus Bolts. Although, spoilers, Panda Cat already announced, and I'm sure he's not the only one. We're all looking out for the Venenu selfies, okay? Let's just keep it 100 right now, Mifflin. But that's not all the Smite action that we have in store for this weekend, Mifflin. Tomorrow, we're going to see Jade Dragons up against the Solar Scarabs, a.k.a. the
Dragon
Bug
Slayers.
Boy Dragon Slayers, although depends on how, what version of the Scarabs that we see, but should definitely be a fun matchup between the two. After that, it's going to be the Olympus Bolts fighting to see if they can keep their win streak going for that 8-0 set finish up against the Oni Warriors. Bound to be a pretty complicated matchup, especially given how strong the Oni Warriors have looked as of late. Nika going to be looking to try and cancel out that Olympus Bolts win spree. I don't know, maybe not. Then again, I could see Nika being a big proponent of the Venenu selfies.
Dude, those Ven selfies are so funny, by the way, chat. If you guys haven't been up to date on it, you haven't followed the SPL players on Twitter, you can go ahead and do so. Because every single time Ven wins a game, he puts out like this hyper stylized selfie. I think in the last one, he was like kicked back in his chair, clearly didn't even selfie stick it. Like he had someone else take the picture for him.
Or a timer.
Wow, maybe. my selfie game just leveled up. I didn't even think of that.
You're welcome, Mifflin. And for you guys back at home, thank you so much for joining us for another fun day of Smite Pack Jam action. We've got more SCC coming tomorrow, though, at 11 a.m. Eastern, so make sure you guys don't miss out. But not only that, after that, of course, we'll have more of the Smite Pro League powered by Alienware taking place. So, again, thank you so much from me, Mifflin, and everybody else here, back in production and whatnot. You guys have a fantastic rest of your Friday, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace out.
Peach it.